What's up, everybody? I know an abrupt cut that time. I don't usually go that abrupt, but I felt like, why not? Go for it, dude. Try something crazy for once. Speaking of crazy, actually, this isn't that crazy. I reached out to the crew and I was just like, "Yo, we should do an episode that focuses on kind of like the idea is slightly inspired by the title Uncut Gems, but it's like hidden gems.
Right.
Like here are I really wanted to say that.
En français?
Well, no more. What's her name? What's the blonde actress?
Yeah, the one from Uncut Gems.
Yeah.
Is it Julia?
Oh, probably. I see. This is the thing. When you quote someone, you should at least know who you're quoting. I don't remember her name.
Julia Fox.
Julia Fox. Sweet. Okay, I did have some sense of her name.
Her name is actually Julia in the movie too.
Oh, there you go. I knew that, right? Yeah, totally. Because I've seen the movie. Never seen the movie. But I just know, like, the funniest thing about that is that I know she says Uncut Gems, and it became like a whole meme. And then I was just like, I want to do hot on Joms. So, so here we are. Welcome to the episode on Joms. It's gonna get progressively worse as I do it too throughout the episode. By the end of the episode, it's gonna be like, Brian, are you okay? No, I may have had a stroke. Knock on wood.
Oh, no.
So we have some IP, some films. I say IP, but we have some really cool projects and really cool things that we've seen throughout the many years that we've been consuming content. And I know people don't really like the word content, but based on the fact that it goes, we're going across multiple different genres here. I think we have like some films, some TV shows, comic books, and stuff like that. So when I say content, I mean in the realm of like IP and things that people have created. I guess the right word I should use is art, if anything, if I'm being fair. Yep. So we have some really great art that we wanted to talk about on this episode. And, so we're going to jump in. I wanted to shoot it to Ness first to start us off because I like the face. So I was kind of, because Ness, you I already feel like I don't remember how to say the name. Weathering. See, okay. You know what, Ness? Take it away. This is why I should introduce it.
So I'm gonna talk about a anime movie that I absolutely love. It's the same director, I believe, as Your Name. Let me just double check that actually, because I didn't. Pretty sure it is. Yeah. So director is Makoto Shinkai. I hope I'm pronouncing his name properly.
Welcome to the crew of mispronouncing. Ever since the start of this podcast, I sometimes outright don't say the names of things because I'm like, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because
it is
to not say the name, but it's like, would you rather I say it incorrectly, or would you rather I tell you look up this movie and its director yourself?
I mean, at least we're trying,
Yeah.
So he directed Your Name, if you've heard of it. I think that's his most popular movie, if I'm not mistaken. So this is another movie he did called Weathering with You. It's about a 16-year-old boy who's kind of, I guess, troubled, and he's unhappy with his life, and he runs away from home. And he ends up meeting this orphan girl his name is Hodaka. So Hodaka is a 16-year-old boy who runs away from home, and he meets an orphan girl named Hina, aka Sunshine Girl, which is her right here in this picture, and she's able to manipulate the weather.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We starting off with the cool shit. You didn't. I didn't realize we were talking about storm level cool shit. Like,
yeah. That's why it's. I mean, I guess that's why it's called Weathering with You.
Right.
Yeah. So he kind of goes on this like adventure with her throughout the movie, and he's experiencing life differently, and she basically opens up his eyes to a new perspective of life because of what he's seeing and experiencing with her, and through her manipulation of the weather. So
Oh, damn.
it's a beautiful movie. Like the visuals are amazing. It's a romance. He falls in love with her. Spoiler. Um,
It's in the name. It's in the name of the title of the thing.
Oh yeah, I guess so. That's true. It's
yeah,
like, is
but
it? Yeah.
it's basically like it's a really nice romance film of these two teenagers who fall in love. Um, but it's kind of like also a message of the what's it called,
Yeah. Yeah.
unpredictability of life, and like life's doings, like weather and the universe's creations.
Yeah, and I was gonna say it's fun for the idea to have a story that's about unpredictability with someone who can control something that is unpredictable. Like the idea of
Yeah,
controlling the weather in of itself sounds wild because it's one of the, we live on this planet. We see how we live in Montreal. We know how unpredictable weather can be.
Yeah, exactly.
So I find it interesting that that kind of like hidden message. I like when they do stuff like that. The juxtaposition of
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. It's a beautiful. It's just visually, like aesthetically pleasing, visually beautiful. The story is just great. It's not. Don't go into it expecting your mind to be blown, but it's just
Mm.
a nice. It's one of those like nice movies with a good, feeling to it, and it's pretty to look at, and I don't know, it gives me like hope watching these types of movies. So
What year was the film made?
this was 2019, I
Okay,
believe.
so recent too. Okay.
Was it 2019? Yeah, 2019.
I so when what like with this film or this piece of art, if you were to try and is this for this director? Is this where you tell people to start, like with this film? Because you're saying like, oh, I like this film.
I mean, I've only seen two of his movies,
Okay.
or maybe three actually. I think I've seen three of his movies. Your Name is his most popular. I don't know why exactly.
Mm.
I think that got like a lot of push. Like there was a lot of
Maybe.
ads for it everywhere. A lot of people were talking about it. I think that's why it got
Maybe.
got a
Yeah, so
lot of
Your Name came out in 2016. So it was before this movie.
Okay.
But I guess oh yeah, now that I'm looking at it, it looks like Your Name was his big breakthrough
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
in
Okay.
2016. Yeah, cuz then he released Weathering with You in 2019, and then Suzumi in 2022.
Okay.
So
And does he tend to be a director who follows a specific theme? Because I noticed that the Your Name is also a fantasy romance.
yeah, Your Name is also a fantasy romance. Suzumi, I don't remember if it's, now that you're saying it though, I think he does have a style.
I mean, that's fun. I like the idea that because once again, like artists and art, sometimes you have a specific signature style. So I'm not mad at it. I was just wondering if that's where his focus is. Man, honestly, when it comes to anime and these anime films, some of these things are just so beautiful too. Like they're
Yeah.
just so well
He
done.
makes it so like the visuals of his movies are beyond. You can literally just like turn on no sound and just enjoy the look of his movies. They're beautiful. So sorry, Suzumi is also a fantasy film, but it's not a romance from what I
Okay.
understood. It says it's a coming of age fantasy film.
I mean, have you ever watched a coming of age that doesn't have a love interest though?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess he has a style. He has a style.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like it.
His movies are all themed, but they're all really like well executed and beautiful, and it gives you like a different perspective on life in a way.
I'm gonna ask one of the one of the things that I used to have a lot of when I worked in radio is whenever someone would submit something to you, they would
Mhm.
say sounds like, because they'd be like, here's the thing that is the most popular that you might recognize with.
right.
If someone was to ask you for this film, Weathering with You, what is the like sounds like, or what is the like similar film that is common? Is there anything that you could lowest common denominator? Oh, you like this, so you might like this. I'm trying to play the algorithm game.
if if you like any of his films.
Right. Yeah.
So if you like Your Name or Suzumi, whichever, if you've seen his work before, then you'll definitely like Weathering with You. I think his work is underrated, probably because he's pretty new.
Mm.
Well, I don't want to say he's new. I don't know how long he's been making movies, but when I say he's new, I mean he had his breakthrough in 2016, so that's not that long
Right.
ago. So I think a lot of people don't know about him and don't know about his work.
Right.
When I went to Japan, I actually ended up buying the manga of Your Name
Oh, cool.
because that was the first movie I watched of his, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to buy it because I saw it at a bookstore in Japan, and I was like, "Oh, I would love to get this." So
Yeah.
in
Own it. Yeah.
Japan, yeah, and I wasn't surprised in Japan that I could find things
Right.
of his, but
Yeah.
here, for instance, like when I talk about Your Name, even to people who watch anime, like they don't really know what
Oh.
Your Name
Okay.
is.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so and I think too, a lot of anime is not really romance. So
Right.
that's probably another reason is because he's heavily focused on like the romance fantasy world.
Yeah.
That's not the market for anime.
Yeah.
It's not the
Oh,
main
yeah?
market,
Okay.
anyways.
Because
Yeah,
because anime is kind of like huge, right? So I always tell people
Right.
anime sometimes it's
it
just
is
a
huge.
big
Yeah,
pile of shit, and you really gotta dig through it for the
I wouldn't say it that
diamonds.
way.
I would say it. Sometimes it's just a lot of stuff that you don't care
So
about, and
funny.
you really gotta look for. I mean, just like
No,
music
but
too. There's so much new music
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
at
yeah,
you,
that's
and
true.
you really gotta dig through the
But
chatter and the
I guess
noise.
I meant more like the market, the average anime watcher
Mhm.
Hmm.
doesn't watch romance anime.
Yeah.
So that's what I
Right.
meant. So I meant more like it's more like TV shows they're watching, like
Mhm.
Naruto and all these like huge anime
Adventure,
names. Yeah,
action, adventure kind of
adventure,
style.
action, mystery, like those types of animes. Romance I feel like is not as popular.
Yeah.
So
All right.
yeah. He's an
Ness.
underrated director, I think, and I think everyone should check out his movies if you like anime movies. I'm more into anime movies than TV shows,
Okay.
Mm.
so that's why
You want your
I
story and
recommended this.
you're out. You don't want a hundred and something episode thing in
I
the
just get
movies.
so like I just get so anxious with all the fillers and the amount of episodes that you need to like
Yeah.
catch up on.
Mhm.
Like
And
it's too much.
it gets heavy and difficult sometimes. Like everyone laughs about One Piece, and it's like, well, yeah, but there are literally 1,000 episodes of
Yeah.
this show, and it's like,
Like
yes, it's going to be difficult for us to feel like we can jump in.
I'm so intimidated. I want to watch it eventually, but it's just
Right.
I have a hard time like with older shows, like newer shows I've
Yeah.
watched because there's only like one season out. But
Right.
the older ones, I'm like, oh God, like
A-
I'm still watching Attack on Titan.
yeah.
So
You'll be
And
done
and
soon.
yeah.
but this is almost a perfect segue because Jaws, I know you want to talk about an anime
Mhm.
that's originally, if I'm not mistaken, also based on a manga, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
So,
I'll let you
okay,
take
I'll
it away,
jump
man.
in. So the one I want to talk about is called Slam Dunk, and it's basically a sports anime. So that's another genre of
I've
animes.
watched this. Sick.
And the most recent thing that came out was Slam Dunk, the first Slam Dunk, which came out in 2022, and that was like an actual theatrical movie.
Hmm.
But there's a whole series that came out, a whole manga series and anime series that came out in the 90s. The manga has definitely ended in the 90s, and same with the show. The show is created by let me see, let me get this right.
Here we go with the
Oh,
pronunciation.
let me get this right. Takehiko Inoue.
Okay. That
And
sounds. You know what though? I like that as the people judging the pronunciation not being Japanese were like, well, that shit sounded good. And it's like a Japanese person is just like, these motherfuckers.
I know Inoue. I know. I think I got right, but just his first
Oh,
name.
I'm sure.
Other notable works he's done is also Vagabond, and Vagabond's a really good
Mm.
manga, like just really good art
Yes,
and
I've heard
work. And
nothing but
if I remember
amazing
right,
things.
he's I think he's self-taught drawing, and it's
Oh,
just really
wow.
good. So if I
Wow.
know Vagabond is more about what was the samurai Musashi, Miyamoto Musashi, and his adventure and him learning how to become a better swordsman and stuff like that. But The main focus is Slam Dunk, and I think another manga he's done is called Real, and he has kind of, I think Real, if I remember right, is more about uh, basketball wheelchair basketball players
Oh, cool.
in Japan. So Slam Dunk is basically about this kid named Hanamichi Sagaragi, who's a high school delinquent and gang leader, and he's just constantly beating up people. They call him the what do they call him? They call him the strikeout king, because every time he tells a girl he likes them, she's like, nah, I'm not feeling you. And then he's just like, oh no, I got defeated again. And his friends are like, oh, he's about to reach his 100th girl that he's asked out and failed with. Ooh, the strikeout king.
Damn.
So one day I think he's like, you know what? I don't want to talk to any girls. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm just going to be a lone wolf, no women. And then he stumbles onto the basketball court and some girl rolls a basketball to him, or he gets hit in the face with a basketball. And he's like, oh, I'm going to beat up the person that threw that basketball. Turns around, it's a cute girl. Hi, how are you? Blah, 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 blah. And she's like, oh, I really like basketball. And, you know, that's how he starts getting it. So Sagaragi is basically the audience surrogate. If you know nothing about basketball, you could literally watch this and kind of get up to speed about basketball. But please note, it's from the 90s. You know, this is before Steph Curry destroyed just being three-quarter god and just algorithms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the manga and the show are heavily influenced by 90s basketball. So that's Patrick Ewing era,
Right.
Jordan, like heavily Jordan. As you could see, if you put up the picture again,
right,
their costume, their school costume, Shohoku, is definitely a dead ringer for the Bulls, basically.
Right.
And Sagaragi-kun kind of patents his, because he's not super, you know, he's learning as he's playing. He's going through. He's like the junior on the team, and he's like, oh, I'm the best player ever. Like he has his hot head, like, oh, I'm the greatest thing ever. But it's like, no, like, dude, calm down. Like, just pass to the teammates and everything. And the creator modeled him after Dennis Rodman.
I was gonna say that sounded like a Rodman, like young guy with heavy energy who needs to like meld with the team a little bit.
Right. So it's basically talking about these boys that, like, you know, some of them might have a rough background and they found purpose in basketball and they're rallying around the team. The captain of the team is named, let me try this again, Akagi Takenori. So Akagi's like the tallest dude on the team. And what's interesting about, if you put up the picture again, some of the characters look, they're all Japanese, but a lot of them, they kind of lean into looking a bit black a bit.
Yeah. So I see some fades and I see some like I see a dude that looks like Vanilla Ice but with darker hair. Like
so this guy on the right is what's his name? Ryota Miyagi. That's my favorite character. He's the point guard of the team, and his hair reminds me of when Jimmy Butler had his hair like that.
Oh yeah, okay.
And he was playing for the Bulls and everything. The number 4, the bottom left, the black guy with the fade and the high top, that's Akagi. But you know, this show was made in the 90s. Manga's made in the 90s. You notice his lips a little bit. He's actually mixed. He's actually mixed. And the girl that Sagaragi likes, which is the guy in the red hair, number 10, is his sister. But the sister looks more Japanese and he looks more black coated. And their dad is like a coach that came from it was a player that came from the States to play in Japan, and then he became like a basketball coach. And his son's playing for a completely different team. And so Sagaragi will start being a smart ass or a dumbass, and Akagi would like just punches him in the head, and you see like a big welt on his, you know, big anime silly welt that comes up on the back of his head. Yeah. And then Sagaragi will like tease him and be like, oh, Gori, no, let me play. And then they'll kind of caricature him to look like a gorilla, because Gori means gorilla. So there's a little bit of that when you watch the anime and read the manga. But it, you know, obviously Sagaragi will get his comeuppance. He'll just smack him in the back and like, shut up and come over here. You know, like he's always put in his place when that happens. And but the show's really cool. It's about this team that they're finally getting the working pieces together to have a full team and learn how to work together. Sagaragi's rival on the team is where's this guy? Rukawa Kare, and those two are always bumping heads. So like when you watch animes like Naruto, and Naruto has the blonde hair and Sasuke has the black hair, it feels like that architect kind of comes from this anime where Rukawa is like the ace rookie. He came from middle school and like he was everyone's talking about him. Oh man, he was like this badass player. He's almost like the Kobe Bryant kind of thing, but he's again a junior. He's on the team in Japan. They're very fixated on hierarchy, and your seniors are your seniors, and they get more of the play time, and then they work their way down. And so these two are fighting each other a lot, but then eventually they start playing together, they start working together, they start realizing, if we work together, we're gonna do a lot better on the team and everything like that. So it's them kind of like struggling to come together and almost getting kicked off the team because of outside people trying to mess them up, and then finally coming together as a team and working their way through, typical sports movie
Teamwork, building,
anime kind of build up. And it's a really good show. It's a really good anime. Again, like when you watch it, you could definitely be like, hey, this looks like Charles Barkley, or this character looks like I said, the guy that's number 4, his face and everything is definitely built off of Patrick Ewing.
Yeah,
for sure. And it's a really good anime. It's on Canadian Netflix right now. It's 101 episodes, but they breeze right through. Everyone's always like, oh my god, that's too much. But okay, you chop out the intro. Like, remember, animation is
true,
trying to be made on the cheap, so they'll play out the whole intro. That takes
every episode.
It's like 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's one of those shows I watched in high school and really liked it a lot. And then when you watch it again when you're a little bit older, you get nostalgic, but you're also kind of hoping that these guys find their purpose. They're trying to find purpose and not just be delinquents, be more than what people think they are, just like all these naughty kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And everyone has their own reason for playing and hoping to gain towards the championship. Like Akagi, he's in his 3rd year. This is his last shot.
For the title?
For the title, his last shot to really get there. And he's been trying, he's this tall dude, he's playing basketball, he's been trying to do it the whole time, and now he's like, I finally have a team, and that's why I'm pushing you guys to this, because I believe we can actually do it. So it's very heartfelt. There's also when this show came out, I think at certain points there were movies in between to kind of let's get this arc out, this manga arc out of the way, or this part out of the way. So I think during certain parts of the anime, there'll be a sort of time skip, or oh hey, something happened here, and this is where you would see the movie in between.
Oh, okay.
And then it would jump ahead. And I know for the newest movie, if I'm trying to remember, for the newest movie, I think it takes place maybe after the anime ended, because the anime kind of ended abruptly and didn't.
The movie that came out recently, right?
Yeah.
The first
Slam Dunk.
Yeah,
right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that takes place a little bit after, if I remember right, because they're starting to fight the best teams, or the team that won last year, and you're seeing them getting gassed out, and they're just trying to push towards the end, kind of thing. So it's really good. The animation's really good. A lot of jokes on the basketball court and people doing things, and it's not as, I would say it's not as absurd as oh my god, they did this crazy thing, and oh, how did he do that? It's it's way more, I feel it's way more grounded than what the basketball animes that came after it, basically.
Okay.
But I would say it's a good watch. It's definitely worth it. And again, 101 episodes, I don't think is bad, especially if you think about it as seasons. If you just break them up, then you should be fine. So
I'm going to ask a super unfair question, and Ness, I'm actually going to ask this to you after. But Jawz. Well, actually, I'll ask the first question I asked Ness. The original question, the algorithm question. Sounds like, or if you like this, you'll like, if you were trying to pitch this to someone, what's the other thing that it sounds like that they might recognize? Because it sounds a little bit like you're describing some of those 80s, 90s coming of age teen movies, like Mighty Ducks and stuff like that. Is it close to that genre? Is it similar? Would you say there's something better that's a better example?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of close to that. I guess, Coach Carter. I'm sure there's like,
Oh, okay, yeah.
other basketball movies. But yeah, like, it's not like the whole team's misfits. Like, there's people that have been on the basketball team or people just trying out, and then
Right.
they're slowly starting to get this team together. And maybe someone that was playing basketball before stopped playing because for some reason, and he kind of comes back to it because he really loves the sport. Maybe a Coach Carter. There's a bunch of like basketball movies out there.
Yeah.
But I guess Coach Carter might be the closest because I know that came out like in the 2000s ish.
Oh, Ness.
Sorry.
Ness made the face. For those of you listening, Ness made one of these wonderful faces of just like, oh shit!
I just thought of a movie that's not at all the same premise, but kind of the same theme as Weathering with You. It would be Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I think.
That's funny. Okay, actually, that's perfect that you gave that, because the next thing I was going to ask you guys, if they were going to make the American bastardized version of your movie or your IP, what type of movie would it be, and who do you think? Like, if you can think of a lead, modern actor, because it's all the big craze now. But if you could think of a lead, who would lead it?
Crap. I didn't even think about that.
I know.
Well,
that's the reason I threw it at you.
So I can't use Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say that would be the move, but like, is it so close that you don't think it would be even worth it to try and make a remake? Because
no,
it's
not. No, that's not true.
right.
Because they are very different movies, but it's similar in the sense that it's about If
Right.
anyone's seen the movie, it's about this teenage boy who's like going through depression. He's feeling, but then he meets a friend, and then he ends up kind of seeing life in a different perspective. So it's a similar theme.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both executed very differently. So if I have to adapt this Weathering with You for the American version, you're saying who would lead it?
They're gonna do it. That's the other thing. When you when you talk about something like this, at some point if it's good enough.
But it wouldn't work.
Oh, here we go. This is what I want to hear. What
I don't think it would work. I don't think it would be the same effect, especially like a live action. Like who?
Yeah, because that's one thing Americans will always do. Like, they'll be like, we have to make it live action. It's like, well,
but
no,
why?
Yeah.
Like I just don't see it. I don't see it having the same impact. Like having a live action of a girl who can manipulate the weather. Like, yes, it could happen. You can do it, sure. But it's just gonna end up looking like a superhero movie or something. Like,
right?
Has like an ability.
This is what the kids like. Let's just lean into that,
Which, Ness, as you're describing it, if I'm in Hollywood, I'm like, yes, make the movie. Like live action weather manipulating teenage girl with boy. Yes, I want to.
Yeah, it is a classic like boy meets girl movie.
Yeah,
like,
I would be very skeptical because Hollywood has a very bad track record of
facts
adapting anime movies and understanding why. I think
so
Netflix is kind of there. Apparently a lot of people say Netflix is there with One Piece, the One Piece show.
That is a very good adaptation.
And apparently that was good.
So I didn't hate Cowboy Bebop, if I'm being honest.
I didn't see it.
Just watch the anime is so much better.
Of course,
it doesn't make sense why you would rob a space casino and blow a hole in the hull
trying
with
to
a
make
gun.
money.
It doesn't make no sense.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. The Cowboy Bebop. We could all take a moment and just say Cowboy Bebop exponentially better than the live version we got.
And the anime did way better in the West than it did in Japan.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. We
love
Cowboy West. Really loved Cowboy Bebop the anime a lot. Yeah,
because Cowboy Bebop, when I watched that, I love Cowboy Bebop, and I know like in anime circles sometimes you have those titles where people are just like, oh, you're a Fairweather fan. Cowboy Bebop is one of those ones where I feel like people respect it across all the spectrums of fandom. Like you could say, oh, the only anime I've ever watched is Cowboy Bebop, and someone will still give you the nod of like, at least you've watched a good one. Like there's whereas like if I say something like the only anime I've ever watched is Hero Academia or Dragon Ball Z, they're just like, okay. Sure, like pat on the head, good for you. You watched the generic ones that everyone else.
I heard Boku no Hero is pretty good though.
That's which.
That's Hero Academia. Sorry.
Yeah. They okay. Yeah.
Sorry, I was like,
Heroes-
Like, you get.
Okay, sorry, because Boku no Hero is the Japanese title.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
government name.
I call it by its real name.
Yeah. You said it, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I've heard that before. Where and then you're
Sorry,
like,
it's because that's how I first heard it.
Heard it,
So
yeah.
don't
I always
apologize
say
for knowing its
Boku no
government
Hero.
name. That's how close y'all are. That's how
I
close
don't
y'all
even
are.
watch it.
It's like, oh, I knew Tupac Shakur's real name was Tupac. It's not just a rap name. It's like, oh, I knew that too. Like, okay, all right.
But I heard that one's like really good. And
It
I'll
is
watch
My
it.
Hero Academia. I mean, I won't talk about it for too long, and because I don't want to say, but like Cowboy Bebop, My Hero Academia, like I say these names, and those are very popular ones. And if you've had the opportunity to watch them, you're probably watching this podcast. Like you're in the same group as us. If you're someone who's watching this for the first time, we've recently seen an uptick in people checking out our page and stuff. So if you're watching our page and you hear us talking about this because you might have heard us talk about wrestling, all the same drama and stuff that you get in like a wrestling show. Like Jawz always talks about how like wrestling is is boys soap opera.
Yeah.
I would say My Hero Academia, it combines elements of like boys soap opera with like love story and with coming of age. Like it does a good job of balancing a lot of elements because you have and it leading into what I'm going to talk about for mine. You have like the All Might, who is the Superman archetype. And then you have this young kid who idolizes Superman. And then it's also like Ness was talking about how, a kid who can manipulate the weather. Well, this is a world where most people can manipulate something. 80% of the world in My Hero Academia have powers. So it's just a very interesting story, and it just makes for a fun watch or a fun read because I hear the manga is very good. Yeah. I would also mention I wasn't going to talk about this, but Fire Force. If you're looking for another cool manga turned anime, Fire Force is fantastic. It's about this kid. They fight demons. Pretty much everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people have like fire bending powers, and he is seen as like a demon, but you find out there's like a lot more to his background, and it feeds into like a whole story of like the different fire stations are being manipulated and are kind of like vying for power in the region. And you're like, what? Like, this is about who wrote this and why do people come up with these ideas? But that's one of the fun things about anime. Like the Japanese over there, they're just doing it on a different level. So
they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Jawz, did you think up any ideas for leads for your American your American standardized version? I will say this, basketball focused series don't often get a lot of love on television in America. There's find
One Tree Hill. That's the last one I could think of.
True, yeah,
and the last one I could really think of.
Because Hang Time, when I was a kid, Hang Time was like the epitome. Anthony Anderson started out on it. Like Hang Time is just this super fun TNBC series that ran with Saved by the Bell and all those other shows on Saturdays, and they used to be so fun to watch. And you got multiple years, like I think they got 3 or 4 seasons of like
and
watching.
Abdul-Jabbar was on it.
Yeah, dude, it had a lot of random like basketball royalty.
95 to 2000. That's a long run. That's a
5 years. Of them doing it, and it was fun. Like I really liked that show, so that's why like when you're talking about your series, Slam Dunk, it reminds me of that era, like Hang Time and One Tree Hill, and those shows. That One Tree Hill is obviously a little longer, more soap opera, but
yeah,
this like your thing specifically reminds me of Hang Time because
the anime came out in 90. It was 93 to 96. That was the run.
Yeah, so it's the exact same time.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we tried to do a basketball show, because there's like, Mindy Kaling recently did a basketball style show on Netflix. I think that's inspired by the daughter of the LA Lakers, the guy who Jenny Bust, I think is her name. So there's like a show on Netflix that's about that, where it's about running the team, and she takes over and she has to deal with, like dealing with her brothers who think they're the heir parents and stuff like that.
She showed them.
Yeah. So that's why stuff like that's interesting. So no, I'm not going to
I can't think of anybody. Like I would need like someone that does a really good job of being a hothead, that
Mm.
can kind of ball, I guess, because I guess you could cut a little bit around
Right,
that.
yeah.
And I know the character Miyoto Miyagi is, he's a short king, but he's like he's the, they call him the general because, the point guard kind of sets the tone and sets the
Right.
pace and stuff like that. And he's reading the plays and everything like that. But I don't know. I can't think of any current, actors that are young enough to kind of play a high school student like that.
I'll ask you this then.
Mhm.
Would you, if because of the structure of the manga and the anime, would it make sense to make a movie, or would they need to make it a series, like a TV series?
I would say maybe a series, because they did make a movie. They did make a live action movie, but because the budget, they didn't want to do the budget. They didn't want to do it in Japan. It was like a Hong Kong one, and it's a little bit more silly. And wait, you could see the cheapness of it. Sadly,
That's
yeah.
So maybe a series, maybe a mini series, and you would do like maybe an arc or two, maybe up to their first, major game where it's like, oh, they're going to get knocked out of the tournament or something like that. But yeah, maybe a lot. Yeah, if they did like a live action series or mini series, I think that would be a good balance between the two, where you get the drama of, these young guys being delinquents and then trying to kind of leave that and commit themselves to basketball, to commit themselves to a team, to commit themselves to people that actually believe in them and want them to succeed and stuff like that. I
just had an unfortunate thought that if they did it in America, they're definitely doing an all black cast, and it's gonna end up being in like Baltimore, where it's just like somewhere that's like just really down Detroit or Baltimore, like down on their luck city.
But I would want to see them, definitely have a bunch of other people, like definitely have inclusion. Like you got to have your white kid, your Hispanic kid, like they could be analogs of each other, but they would, as you saw in that image, a lot of those characters, they're the artist and the creator is definitely leaning into, like they say that because Slam Dunk was so popular in Japan in the 90s, because the NBA was coming up and rising in the 90s, because everyone was so crazy about basketball, it like propelled streetwear in Japan.
Oh, that's cool.
There's and the filler episodes are pretty good too. So like the thing I would want to see is him fleecing someone for some Jordans. So that's like, so the girl that he likes takes him out. Oh, you need basketball shoes. So they go out and he's like, oh, I guess I'll get those. And he's pointing at Air Jordans. And the guy's like, well, those are this much. Oh, that's the shoes. That's too much. And then somehow he fleeces them and he tricks them and he gets them for cheap. Somehow he gets Jordans for cheap. And he's using them to play basketball. Like, he knows nothing about the culture and basketball, all that. So like, I think there's like a lot of good fun stuff they could do. But I mean, it's a little bit difficult because I mean, America just won the Olympics for basketball. Like everyone was watching that, so it's a little bit.
There's it's not really an underdog if you do it in America because it's just expected culturally. Oh well, this sport is popular. Like it's already blown up. Yeah, that's very fair. Okay. So this is a crazy question. Then, is there a way you could do the story with a different sport in America as opposed to basketball? Is there a version of that where it's just like, oh, we're lacrosse? I mean, lacrosse, no, because that's a rich man's game. But
I would
soccer.
Lacrosse is very violent, though. I would say hockey, but
maybe football.
Hockey's
football, maybe.
Football. I mean, football's Sunday's not the Lord's Day. It's football.
Yeah.
Everyone knows football in America.
So it's like it would have to be like a sport soccer is what I was thinking. It really is soccer because in the United States, like the MLS is. Okay,
it's there. They got Messi. Messi's in the MLS. It's getting bigger.
Right.
I know they have like two warring, not leagues, but associations that are kind of screwing up everything. So that's why they're never gonna do anything in CONCACAF and World Cup. They'll always be strong. They can be strong, but because they have two warring associations that kind of screw up everything
instead of working together. Yeah,
they're not working together. So one's like, so there's a whole thing with that. But it's I don't know if you would have to find a new sport that no one knows about, or you would have to
pickleball.
I mean, I know Brad Pitt's doing an F1 movie. That could be something because that's
Oh, true.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
yeah.
In association with
Idris.
F1. Hamilton
Huh.
is the executive producer.
Yeah, Damson Idris, Brad Pitt. There's like a few.
Javier Bardem.
Yeah.
So that could be something, but that, again, that's a rich man's sport. Like you have to have
Yeah,
sponsors
yeah,
behind
yeah,
you. Like
yeah.
it's like to get into that is difficult, you know,
Yeah.
and you have to be really good, and then you have to have like people supporting you and keep on
Right.
supporting you because you're winning, because you're doing well. So
Yeah, basketball really is one of those sports where it's like a net and a ball.
yeah, it's
Can
kind of
the
like
ball bounce?
soccer and a ball and two poles,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Okay, well that's fair. Thank you guys for answering those odd random questions I tacked on. But it's just because I like, as we were talking about, I just had these thoughts and I was just like, well, this is. I'm wondering what your position is on this. Guys, I got my thing that my piece of art, my oeuvre, as the youngins might say, and I picked something that I remember the first time I read this. I thought this is either the best version of Superman I've ever read, or it's the worst version of Superman I've ever read. But either way, I love what they're doing here. And then the way they ended the comic, which I will spoil this one piece of thing. I'm gonna literally jump to the end with this.
First, though.
The Plutonian. In the comic book Irredeemable. Irredeemable was a comic book by Boom Studios that came out. I think it came out 2000. Publication information. It came out in 2009 and ran until 2012. 37 issues, which is actually quite short of a run, because that's exactly the 3 years, right? You get one issue a month for 3 years. You get 36. Plus, there's one special. And I will say this about it. The way they wrote this is the ending is that the energy of the Plutonian is launched into space and lands on Earth and goes into the mind of a young man who is sleeping. And that man was Joel Shuster, who wrote Superman. And the idea is at the end of the Plutonian, oh, Superman exists because of this guy. And the fact that when you read this comic book and you're like, you people are crazy to associate Superman to this, because he is, guys, this is the good guy. This is supposed to be the good guy. Look at this background.
Why
Actually?
why is everything destroyed? It looks like everything's destroyed.
Exactly. So I'll give you a bit of a quick rundown of what the story is. Irredeemable is a say what?
Why does he look so mean?
Yes, guys. This is Irredeemable is a comic book set in a world where essentially the Superman of this world kind of has a little bit of a Homelander situation. Just a little bit.
No.
As in like
nope.
Yeah.
Far out.
just a smidge. And I say in the sense of instead like he was essentially made, or not made. He kind of comes to Earth and gets raised by these people and becomes Superman. But it's kind of a Brightburn beginning, where the beginning of the story, when you find it out later on, is it's not that he was just a good, wholesome kid who grew up in Americana. He kind of was a crazy person, and he just managed to keep that history hidden as he became Superman, quote unquote, the Plutonian.
Okay.
So by the time he becomes the Plutonian, I think pretty much anyone who knew anything about his past didn't exist anymore.
Ooh.
By whatever means, I recommend you read the comic book. But no one was around to tell the story of the Plutonian before certain dates.
You do that meme with Padme and Anakin. So that means you outlive them, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So you start the story, and I think one of the best parts of the story is you don't start the story watching the heel turn. You don't start the story seeing the babyface. You kind of start the story seeing the heel turn, which is a really fun thing, because you're taking for granted that this person has just been the greatest hero these people have ever had.
Right.
He has been the person who's protected them against everything. His sidekick is a little South Asian boy with a gem in his head that can like create constructs. You know, he had the sidekick and all that stuff. And like as you're reading the comic, you're just like, okay, his arch nemesis is essentially a cross between like Lex Luthor and actually he's pretty much just Lex Luthor. He's just drawn differently, but he's like a super genius, like super intellect. One of the things about his nemesis, the Plutonian's nemesis in the comic Modius, is that he is in love with the Plutonian though. That's one of the things that I find interesting. You know how a lot of comic books like hint at it? Oh, I guess this is what I was going to say. Modius is a mix between Lex Luthor and the Joker. And not the Joker as a character, but the Joker in the sense that the Joker is obsessed with Batman and wants to be the only game in town for Batman's attention and affections. Like, I don't know if you guys... I think one of the best depictions of the Joker, as funny enough, is Lego Batman, because Lego Batman really plays on the idea that the Joker and Batman are actually just in love. It's a love story. And it's just that the reason the Joker is the way it is, he is because I don't want you to pay attention to anyone else. I don't want anyone else to be important to you. You should only be focused on me. And it's kind of this obsessive love affair. And Modius has that for the Plutonian. Like the reason he attacks people and like destroys the city is not because he wants to destroy the city. It's because the Plutonian has to go off and protect the city. And he finds it annoying that the Plutonian can't just focus on him. So he wants to destroy the things the Plutonian cares about so that he has no other option than to focus on him. And it's just like, that's wild to me. Like that depiction of love is like broken. Broken, foundationally broken. But to write something that kind of convoluted about an obsession and a passion for someone is fantastic. But then what happens in a world where you are the evil person who's obsessed with someone, but that person you're obsessed with turns out to be a literal monster. And a literal monster.
Now you're way in over your head now, huh? Yeah. You done fucked up.
It's just like, you know, you take for granted that this person would always do the right thing. No, the Plutonian does not always do the right thing anymore. You're looking at a Superman who is going to snap necks, is going to break spines, is going to burn people to a crisp. And like, he doesn't do that, you know, obviously, because in the story, as you're reading it, you know that he didn't used to be like that. But now you're at the point where, like, people are hiding. I don't remember where their base was, but the Plutonian himself was living inside of a volcano because he can survive. Like that background you're seeing of destroyed stuff is like part of his lair. And one of the things that's really good is that I thought was smart for the writers is when they were writing the Plutonian and Irredeemable, and it's the idea that like he's the hero and he's become irredeemable, you know, no matter what. There's one character in the comic book who truly believes that, oh, you know, we shouldn't kill him. I think there's still a good person inside of him and we can save him. And you're like, no. Like there's one character called Cubits who is another like super genius, and he has this kind of crazy power where he can rearrange the components of machinery and like build anything. So he builds like teleportation technology, and that's pretty much how they get away from the plutonium mostly throughout the story, because, you know, being Superman, he can be anywhere almost at once, and they start doing smash and grabs to try and beat him. So they're trying to like, okay, we need to figure out how to make like this like thing, like his kryptonite can be made from this, so we have to get these pieces to like do this thing. But he, you know, similar to Superman, like he knows what can hurt him, but differently from Superman, whereas Superman would have been like, fine, I'll let you have the kryptonite if you think you need it to protect yourself from me. The Plutonian is just like, I'm going to kill everyone who knows that this stuff can hurt me so that no one knows what can hurt me. and
you know what? That's scary as shit.
Dude, honestly,
that line you said of you take for granted that Superman's not going to kill you.
Like, so imagine if you
granted that Superman's not going to put all his whole power into it because he would just snap your neck.
Right.
Just jab you really.
Because
like, at full strength.
You probably remember it. What's the thing about Superman, the brown bag? Doesn't he have a whole monologue at one point? Superman has one where he talks about, I think he's talking to Darkseid, and he's just like,
I've been holding back this whole time.
Yeah, like, do you want
to take my full power.
Yeah.
Baff.
Like, do you understand what it's like? And I honestly find that to be one of the most interesting.
I'm a bull in the China shop, and the world is China, is fine China.
Yes.
And I'm the bull. I have to like really be careful what I do and really control everything.
Like, even as a human, like for us, paper is a thing, is like a weak thing that like we can pick up and we like just light pressure can crumple it. That's everything to Superman. Superman opening a door has to apply the same pressure as if I was trying to not rip the paper, as you know. So take that concern for the well-being of others, take that limiting of your own like take away self-control, and now put that in the strength of essentially a god. Jesus. Who now wants to erase everyone. Yeah. So in the comic book, the comic book is essentially him just taking over, him running the world, him being angry and evil, and people trying to stop him, and the Plutonian, like, guys, spoiler alert, I guess I should say, but I mean, it happens early on, and I want to say it to really emphasize how dark this is. He kills the sidekick. He kills the kid that is his sidekick by lobotomizing him.
Jeez.
Because the kid sees him do something that a hero shouldn't do, and the kid is taken aback, like, why would you do that? And instead of answering to the kid, he lobotomizes the kid.
Jesus.
Damn.
That's, guys, what I'm telling you. I love this comic. I know it sounds morbid to say he lobotomizes a child. I love this comic. But I gotta tell you, as someone who loves Superman and loves those type of heroes and like that archetype, and the conversation around Superman being, you know, Superman is so boring because he's a Boy Scout. People say that all the time. And then you get a comic book where someone writes, right.
Well, I always think when I do understand, like, you know, you've always get that goody person, and it's always, you know, becomes quote unquote boring. But then when you like you're saying right now, when you let Superman step out of that, and you're like, ugh, you know, you're like, oh man, good thing he's a good guy. Good thing he likes everybody.
Right. Awkward laugh.
What was that movie? Wasn't there an animated movie who was fighting like a new league of superheroes?
Yes, the British.
The what?
Yeah, there's I'll find the name, but it's like a group of British heroes.
Yeah, and you get the whole world to turn on Superman somehow, and then he comes back and beats them all up, but he doesn't beat
the
them
Elite.
Up like,
Superman versus the Elite.
Right.
It came out in 2012. Yeah.
And then he just wrecks them. Like at some point he gets fed up and and he's like, "You're not supposed to do that." It's like, well, I can do what I want. Like, ah.
So I got to tell you guys, check out Irredeemable, and if anything, check out the comic book Incorruptible, which is the other. So Incorruptible is about the guy. So there's, you know how like Superman has his rogue gallery of villains. So Plutonian had his rogue gallery of villains. So he had Modius, but then he had another guy in his rogue gallery who was like one of the worst villains, you know, like just a horrible person, and he had to become a hero. So Max Damage was like a super villain. He gained superpowers, and the longer he stays awake, the stronger his powers are, is I think what I understood. And then he has to take on, like, when you're a villain and you see the Superman archetype turn into a monster and start destroying the world, even you have to go like, well, I can't do anything. I can't be a bad guy in this. Like, I'm not going to be worse than you. Right. And I can't really benefit from a world in which you run things. So the only way I get to go back to the status quo that I like, where I get to be crazy and evil and unhinged, is I have to stop you. So they wrote the comic book Incorruptible, which is about him becoming like the most he's a corrupt person who has to become incorruptible to try and help save the world. And so if you get the omnibus of it, it's the whole thing of all 37, and then I think 2 issues of Incorruptible that have the crossover of the main story. And guys, honestly, if you're a fan of The Boys, if you're a fan of Superman, or even if you're tired of Superman, if anything, specifically tired of Superman, I highly recommend. Yeah, if you've spent your whole life saying you're tired, like Ness, honestly, if you spend your whole life looking at Superman being like, this King Boy Scout is so boring, the Plutonian in Irredeemable is probably the comic book you would enjoy.
I would assume at this point you're not bored with Superman, because I don't think there's been a lot of Superman
but you still wouldn't give him a chance.
I think you're bored of the idea.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Like when you think of Superman, this is what you think of. And it's like, regardless if you've seen the new movies, regardless if you've seen the new TV shows and this, that, and the other, or I'm assuming they're trying different things.
Well, I mean, Ness, are you excited for this new Gunn Superman movie that's coming out?
No.
But see, so that's the thing. Because I would say you're not excited because you're kind of over the idea of the Boy Scout.
Yeah, well, I've just never been interested in Superman. I never thought he was a cool superhero. I feel like he was just always this like white savior,
right?
Like glamorized, just I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things. Like, if you read the Plutonian, because the Plutonian is an alien to the planet, and people.
Yeah, no, this sounds interesting.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, Superman for me is just like boring.
I think
like his overall character is just he's not interesting enough.
Yeah,
I would say probably because I guess as the generations go further and further away, we're more cynical and more questioning and more like we start feeling like, you know what, Lex Luthor has a good point. You know what, Batman in that movie has a good point. What if he just flipped? What if he just
that's it.
Decided like, nah, screw this, screw everybody. I don't like doing it anymore.
For those of you who worry about what if he just flipped, read this comic, Irredeemable. There've been 2 attempts at making movies. The last update we got, the original one was supposed to be over at Fox. That seemed to have died because in 2022 they announced. Yeah, that too. But in 2022 they announced that they were working on something for Netflix. I don't see how you make this over at Netflix because he's a murderer. It's like if you're gonna do this at Netflix, you have to do it almost kind of like how you did the OG Daredevil, where it's just really dark, really gritty, and you have to be willing to show people being like, guys, he lobotomizes a child. I'll just remind you of that. That's what. I don't know about you guys, but that's not an easy scene to watch on a TV show, and it definitely wasn't an easy panel to read in a comic book. So, so that's my oeuvre that I wanted to bring up. And guys, that's the whole one. That was our whole thing. We had a lot of fun talking about these things. Anything you guys want to tell the people about your pieces as we sign off?
For me, you could find everything on Netflix. I mean, I'm not sure if it's on American Netflix, but I know it's on Canadian Netflix. Definitely check it out. The animation's from the 90s. It's gonna look old school, but I like that looking style, and it's just fuzzy feelings, fuzzy Saturday morning cartoon feelings, and animation still. I feel it holds up. I know some people might be like, but I feel it holds up. It's that old school, like, hey, we're trying really hard. We got the budget. We're going to try to stretch this budget because it's a TV show. It's 100-something episodes. We got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
But the movies are also good too. So good stuff.
Ness?
For me, Weathering with You is on Crave for Canadian watchers. I don't know where it is on American TV, but Crave would be your go-to.
That's
and
awesome.
I think also on Crunchyroll.
Oh, dope. Okay. Probably in the States on Crunchyroll. Irredeemable is a comic book. You could probably get digital online if you look it up, but go to your local comic book shop. Go check it out. Go ask them if they can order you the omnibus, or if you want to start issue by issue. I would honestly read the omnibus, because once you start reading it, it is an addictive story, and it's going to just keep going, and it just builds and builds. It's not like, one of the things about some of these comic books is you get the 6-issue arc. Sometimes you get one-shots. This one is not arcs. The whole thing is the Plutonian needing to be stopped. And it's a story, 37 issues of what if Superman took his godlike powers and made a mess of things, and how do you stop that? So it's really interesting. It's really dark. And, if you're looking for it, hit your local comic book shop. Guys, that's the whole episode. We want to thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll be back with another one soon. Peace, everybody.